Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The federal government used part of the Nigerian treasury bills and bonds issued in 2024 to pay down ways and means advances from the Central Bank of Nigeria by 4.83 trillion naira. The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, has disclosed. While the federal government reportedly owes the Apex Bank about 30 trillion naira under the Ways and Means advances, the actual amount is being disputed, with the minister recently disclosing that the figures would be audited to authenticate the exact sum being owed. However, while presenting the paper at the recent Lagos Business School Breakfast Club, Edun disclosed that the federal government used part of the NTBs and bonds issued in 2024 to pay down Ways and Means advances by 4.83 trillion naira. The upper chamber had on December 30, 2023, following President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's request, approved and confirmed the securitization of an outstanding 7.3 trillion naira Ways and Means advance. Joining us now on the show is Omotola, a Nigerian economist and CEO of Confederated Facilitators. Good morning, Mr. Omotola, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
All right, brilliant. Well, I just shared what the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy has said with regards to the payment of 4.83 trillion naira of the Ways and Means advances. The first thing I'd like to ask is, number one, the amount of money, 30 trillion naira. This is just about 16% of the total sum. And then number two, the source of the payment of these loans. If it's from bonds and NTBs, would that then not be using one form of loan or loan to pay off another loan?
I think you're correct with that. Let's first understand that the Ways and Means thing is just like an overdraft to a company. And the essence of Ways and Means is like a stopgap, that when there is emergency need from government, that according to the CBN Act, Section 38, subsection 2, that the CBN can borrow government 5% of their revenue. And if you look across board from 2017 to 2023, that 5% hardly will it exceed like 200 billion. But all of us have seen that there have been an abuse of that provision, and we brought it to this very high amount, because if we have lived by the rules, we will not even get to close to 2 trillion that is outstanding. But to come to your question, usually when government go to the market to sell bonds, the whole essence, the primary function of raising money through bonds is for infrastructure development. Yeah. Is to build roads, build hospitals, and build mega projects. But because of what we have found ourselves, the situation we found ourselves, I think on the part of the government, they believe that this money that they've raised, let them show a little bit of their obligation to pay back their loan. And the reason for paying back this loan is to give the government creditworthiness, that we are ready to pay this loan, and any money we also collect, we'll pay it back. So what government is trying to do is to show that creditworthiness as to building infrastructure. We all know that when you raise bond, like the Sukuk bonds and the rest of it, is for road and infrastructure. But we're in a very critical situation. What the government inherited was a bad economy, and they're trying to fix it.
Okay, very quickly. You quoted Section 38 of the CBN Act of 2007. We talked about 5% threshold,
yes,
which the Buhari administration violated. But I thought there was an amendment to it, increasing that threshold to 15%. Even that 15% was violated. Yeah. Now the question now is, the Tinubu administration is robbing Peter to pay Paul, a financial carousel, as it were. How do we end this cycle of debt and debt servicing. Is there a way out? Particularly now that both Mr. Edun and Mr. Kadusu at the CBN are saying that there will be no ways and means advances. Can we trust them not to continue after a while in the old ways of the former CBN?
You see, it's difficult to be sincere with you, because when you have a 30 trillion naira, that's the 30 trillion naira whole. And don't think that it's just only 30 trillion naira. 30 trillion naira on an increasing interest rates. It continues to increase. And you cannot clean that 30 trillion naira out in one administration unless there is a miracle. In the next 4 years, you want to clean the 30 trillion naira out. Now, if you look at all the money borrowed, they also come with like a trillion naira interest rates. But what they can do is to reduce borrowing, but not to totally outlaw borrowing. They have to now borrow reasonably, and they have to borrow with responsibility. But to totally say we're not going to borrow, no nation lives by not borrowing. So there will still be borrowing, but we just need to be now responsible about how we borrow.
Well, the option that they're offering, because at that LBS event, Mr. Edun talked about other options, like revenue, like agricultural productivity, like increasing, consistently, crude oil production to about 2 million barrels per day. What do you think of those other options that he talked about at that breakfast?
Those other options have always been on table for Nigeria to diversify this economy. Since the time of Shagari, we all know these are other options, that these things are the things we need to do. We need to be productive. We need to improve on our non-oil export, on non-oil business. But you see, the problem we have is how do we implement it? How do we execute it? How do we move away from rhetorics to execution? Today, government have close to 1 trillion in intervention, 500 billion for multi-sector funding intervention. That money has not yet been disbursed. 200 billion for agriculture. I don't know if that money has been disbursed. 15 billion for nano businesses. Then around 200 trillion for SMEs. Now, when you look at the aggregate of this whole money, it's like $1 trillion naira. I don't know if that money has entered into the economy. And if this money does not hit the economy, the revenue side that he wants to increase, we are not going to see it. But the money is still there for the sake of bureaucracy and institutional issues and so on. But that money is not yet disbursed. But you see, over the years, we all know that we want to diversify this economy. We all know that we want to move away from oil and want to move away to agric. But who is going to put the boots on ground, roll up those sleeves, and do the work is now the issue.
All right, thanks. So let me go back to that conversation around the use of bonds and NTBs to pay off. And like you said, especially just interrogating the fact that ideally, those revenue raised from issuing bonds and NTBs ought to go into infrastructure development, even though it's not ring-fenced, like Sukuk bond. But is this trade-off worth it? I know we have to service our debt. We have to get out of this debt trap. But it comes at a cost. Was it an easy way out in terms of not creative enough in looking for ways to shore up revenue to pay debts? Or was it something that had to be done? It was, a critical situation that had to be dealt with, and so this trade-off was necessary.
The first 1 year, which will close in next month of Tinubu's administration, and expected of every government, any government that just comes in, is to understand the shape, the depth, the size of the problem of the nation. I think these first 12 months, that's what they've used to study what the extent of problem, the mess that is on ground, and what to do. Now, when you look at CBN, we are not clear about the thinking of the CBN, leaving to its creed that we're going to just deal with monetary policy and not deal with developmental finance. Now, the CBN on its own have decided that the way we're going to fight the Naira, we'll fight it in a conventional way. and to a certain extent, we are seeing results. Now, among all the devils that you need to deal with, recession, growth, economic growth, inflation, FX, CBN have said, look, we will just attack inflation and attack FX, which is their primary obligation as monetary people. Now, on the fiscal side, which is where the coordinating minister, Wale Edun, comes in, is to now look at the development finance, how to intervene in ensuring that there's productivity, in ensuring that, okay, businesses are on the run, businesses begin to grow. Because presently, the private sector is really feeling the heat. They are the ones feeling the entire pain because interest rates have gone up, electricity bill have gone up, diesel bill have gone up, everything, cost is on the increase. Now, but they, by their own roadmap, believe that once we bring FX down, interest rates will come down. And then again, we don't need to go to stock exchange to ask for bond. And then by that time, we will bring down interest rates, and then the private sector cannot lead the economy. This is their own thinking. This is the thinking they have, which is very clear. But you see, implementation becomes a challenge. How do we implement our target for agriculture? How do we implement our target for FX to come down below 1,000? And how do we implement our productivity? That's where the issue is. So at the end of the day, the next 1 year is now when we have to now begin to see results. Because this first 1 year is to understand the issues and to provide solutions, and then we now begin to see lasting solutions to these things.
Okay, there was an issue that came up this morning during the segment with Rotus. The report about foreign reserves going down. And if you look at our foreign reserves, it's been going down consistently. If you check from about March 14 till April 3rd, April 10, which is the latest data that was given, just going down consistently, fluctuating consistently. How do you reconcile that with the efforts of the CBN that we just talked about, to manage liquidity? They say they are injecting liquidity into the system. They are trying to stabilize the naira. They are hoping that foreign portfolio investments will come in and that there will be more dollar influx. But at the same time, our foreign reserves is continuously being depleted. What are the implications of that? Or it doesn't matter that foreign reserves seem to be going down?
No, it matters if the foreign reserve is going down. But you must also understand that the posture of CBN today is that the FX must come down at all costs. Whatever it needs to be done for FX to come down, it must come down. The Nigerian economy has to be totally dissociated from the dollar. That is the vision of the CBN, that whatever we need in the shortest time for the dollar to come down, what we have to do for the dollar to come down, it needs to come down. And that when it comes down, it's going to affect every sector of the economy. For example, I tell you, if you needed like 2 million naira to get $1,000, today it's come down to 1,100. So that is going to have an impact. But again, what the CBN is doing can never be for the long term, because when it comes, if it's going to be for the long time, it's suicidal. They're just doing it as an emergency situation, as a stopgap, which I feel that in the next 2 months, they will stop it in order for there to be a handshake between themselves and the fiscal side, so that the fiscal side cannot intervene on the macroeconomic sector. But everything you see CBN do today, they've chosen among all the devils that what we want to attack frontally is that of the FX. That FX have to come down. So all these measures are just temporary.
Which is precisely my point. How sustainable? Because what they are doing now, we've tried it before, and it didn't work. And okay, if they say they are, injecting liquidity and all of that, now we have not seen the effect. Can you help me explain why we have not seen the effect in the market? Okay, there's something economists call the lag effect and all of that. So if you say they can only do what they are doing for about 2 months, you see in the market, people are just watching. So, okay, let them say they are bringing down the dollar. The dollar will still go up again. So the speculators, they are not bothered. They say, we've seen it before. How do you build that confidence in the market?
Okay, good. You see, in as much as CBN is bringing down the FX, the eventual goal of CBN is price stability. They want to drive down the FX to, let's say, like 700, and then ensure that it remains at that 700 for the next 4 years. Now, what the market people want to see, this is the goal. This is the goal. This is the strategy. This is the vision. That let's continue to drive down this FX and peg it at 700 and ensure that it remains there. Now, the people in the market wants to see price stability. They will be convinced if that dollar is at the rate for the next 6 months. But because it's still a short time, you can't see market reaction to it. You cannot see it because it's too short. So the people want to be convinced because they don't want to bring down their goods, and by the time they want to return back to their own market, the thing has gone higher. So you must understand that it's still a waiting process. So in the next 6 months, we should have set to that, getting the true value for the Naira and getting price stability. If we don't achieve that, we'll still continue to go up and down. So the vision is get the true value for Naira and get that price stability that it remains the way it is.
All right. Let's come back to the focus areas of the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. I think that was quite important because we've heard quite a bit from the CBN, we've seen policy directions, but perhaps what a number of people are also saying, we're also looking forward to was a parallel announcement or policy direction from the fiscal side of things. 3 areas. I want to ask, how confident are you that we're able to achieve this? The first is, like was earlier mentioned, 2 million barrels per day of oil, including condensate. The second is agriculture, taking that or boosting it from 2.1% to 3% this year, as opposed to 2023. And then the third is to boost trade activities. When we look at oil and agriculture, one of the things that we must talk about must be security. So, and these metrics or these proposals are set to take effect in 2024 in order to boost economic growth. How confident are you about these things? Are they realistic? Can they achieve it? And what must be put in place? We've talked about, when it comes to insecurity, absolutely important. If the farmers will go to the farm, that needs to be in place. How confident are you that this is realistic?
So that's the area of execution. And the GMD of NNPC is the only one that would have to take up that call of increasing to 2 million. If we're able to get it to 2 million, all of us are sure that things will get better. But that area of execution is always a weak link. We don't get it executed after all the paperwork. At the end of the day, we don't see execution. The same thing goes for the agric sector. The area of execution is usually the problem. If anything is going to happen next year, we should begin to plant now. Are we doing the planting now? Can people investigate if the planting is being done now? Because if it's not done right now, there's nothing to harvest in the next 6 to 1 year. So in that area of execution, which Nigeria is always lagging behind, we need to now hold the leaders of that sector accountable in terms of the GMD of NNPC and then the Minister for Agriculture. Those are the targets that the coordinating minister have set to them. And then if they do not meet it, then the performance rating that we are all looking at would definitely drop. And we will know that they are the ones that didn't meet their target. But the target has been set by the minister, and everything they need to execute it, I believe, should be given to them. And if they're able to do it, I think we're on the right path.
All right, so we remain cautiously optimistic and looking forward to those, the projections to come to reality based on the efforts of this administration to shore up economic growth. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Omotola, for speaking to us this morning.